So we're back. I think the powers that be didn't want to hear me because I don't have nothing nice to say. I don't have nothing nice to say. Now, I'm going to call it the way I need to call it. But can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me now? Okay, great. I'm going to call it the way I need to call it. But it's not, one thing I don't do is I don't lie. And I'm not going to say things just because they sound nice. And I think that it's what you want to hear. The reality is, that was the most embarrassing showing of an incumbent presidential candidate I've ever seen in my lifetime. It may be the most embarrassing debate showing in the history of televised American debates since the 60s. And that's not me being rude. That's not me being a pessimist, niece. That's me telling you the fucking facts. Now, here's the thing. Before we even get into the actual debate, let's take a look at the Democratic Party. I said this, for those of you who follow this channel, you follow my lives, you follow these cabinet meetings. I said that Joe Biden is a stop the bleeding president. I said that he's a transitional president. He is not a long-term, two-term president. I don't know what, if I could see that, and I'm not in politics, right? But if I could see that, why couldn't you see that? The Democratic Party has Viserys Targaryen running for re-election. What is this? The Democratic Party should have been grooming a successor to Joe Biden the minute he won office. That's the reality. And Joe, you should have been spearheading that. Because you know, pride or not, and see, here's the thing. This is what is so, men, pride before crash. I'm trying to keep it together because if I'm being honest, y'all, I'm angry right now. I'm angry because I'm looking at a debate where only two options that I'm presented are two old ass white men who will not feel the effects of the decisions they have made and are making while they're in office. They will be dead when the true fallout from all of these Supreme Court justices that were appointed that were conservative, they'll be gone. They'll be dead when we see the true fallout from the funds sent to Ukraine, the wars in Israel, the conflicts with China. They will be gone. This will be a worry that they will not have to consider. But we are letting people who will be dead, you understand me, by the time the effects of their policy truly play out. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump was lying his ass off tonight. We could go and fact check. You want to see all the facts? CNN, MSNBC, they got the fact checkers there. Because there was a lot of lies tonight. No shade, there was some lies on both sides, but whatever. But nobody cares if you're lying if you can sell it. Politics is show business. I've also said that since we've started these meetings. And tonight, in my opinion, you can say this is pessimistic. You can say, DDM, we expect more out of you. But I'm not going to lie to you. Tonight was the curtain call on Joseph Biden. Okay? That's the reality. Tonight was pivotal. At this point, we're voting based on blind assumptions. This is scary. Joe Biden, as soon as he walked out, I'm like, it's over. I can't understand half the shit you're saying. First off, you look like a fucking corpse when you walked out there. You sounded like a fucking corpse. I'm like, where is the staffers? Where is the hot tea with the honey and the sugar in the raw? Why didn't this man get some rest before the night? Where is the makeup artist? Did we not think to do some hair implants? And you know the thing is, not that should matter, right? Because the issues should matter. But this is the United States of America. We are style first, substance second. And that's how it's always been. If I'm a donor, I'm nervous tonight. And I want to say this. I want to say this. You don't have to like CNN. I know right now, basically CNN and Fox News to the American public, they both in the toilet. But I will say this. I love this format. Why? It was no audience to sway your opinion or to influence. It was strict on time. They ain't play with the time. They ain't let people go over. And we got to see live and in living color if the truth can outweigh a lie. And I hate to say this, but the truth didn't outweigh the lie tonight. Now, if you do your homework, right? You do your homework, you go fact check and everything. Joe Biden definitely was better in that regard. Donald Trump did not answer questions. He can never. But see, here's the thing. Since 2015, when he stepped on the scene, 2015, when he stepped on the scene, he never answered questions. So at this point, he's not the idiot. You are. because he's not doing anything different than what he's always done. So is he really the asshole? Or is the American public? And that's what we got to ask ourselves. We can't keep saying, yeah, because he dodged questions. He always dodged questions, and dodging questions got him a whole presidency. So what the fuck that really mean? Oh, well, yeah, he got them felony counts. Don't nobody care about that. And when you talk to people on both sides of the aisle and legal scholars, they'll tell you, when you look at the facts of those 34 counts, what exactly did he really do that was illegal? I mean, it was illegal, but when you look at it, and I'm not advocating for Trump. Y'all know I sit and dispel this man all day on this channel, but I'm not going to sit and not face the fucking reality. Okay? When we look at the facts of how this is perceived, if I'm a swing voter and I watch this debate tonight, and I'm not one of those people that sit and fact check everything and look at everything and, all of that, I'm looking at him like, I don't know. Is this the bitch that we really want dealing with Putin in China? Really? And that is a very plausible and a very valid question. We got a war in Ukraine that we're assisting. We got the Israel and Palestine shit going on. China bucking up. You got North Korea clicking up with Russia. They got an alliance going on. It's game time. It's game time for real. And I'm not saying that Trump is any better, because I don't think, he is the most, the best choice, rather, to protect democracy, because things will change if he gets another term. And things will change more so on the how we live our lives side, right? Because the courts are conservatively packed. I just spent a weekend in North Carolina last week, and I could feel the effects of the Trump presidency in the microaggressions, in the way that people are talking to each other. You can feel it. So a Trump presidency does have consequences. That's the reality. Now, my personal opinion, it's really only one of two options, really, for the Democratic Party, right? Either Biden sticks this out and we play it out to November and see what happens, or, because the Democratic National Convention has not happened yet, Biden steps back and we get a replacement. But if we get a replacement, now the replacement has to gain the trust and buy-in of not only the people who were going to vote for Biden. I think the hardcore Democratic voters will vote for whoever the replacement is, right? Just like if there was a replacement for Trump, they would vote for whoever the replacement for Trump. The right would vote for whoever the replacement for Trump was. But Dean Phillips had the right idea. But Dean Phillips didn't have the name recognition, and the Democratic National Convention did not support him. And no shade. No shade. This is the DNC's fault. Because they knew that this man was already old. Let's revisit when he ran. back in the 2020 election. He didn't even really want to do it. They asked him, really pushed him to do it because they thought he was the only one that really had a chance. You got to think about it, right? When we do an autopsy on this time in history, we had some great candidates on the Democratic side. We had Elizabeth Warren. We had Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie was old too, but you know. We had some great, great candidates. And all of those candidates got sacrificed for bullshit. Pete Buttigieg was a candidate. God damn it. We had some great candidates on the Democratic side, and all them people got sacrificed. In fact, if we revisit that election time, Joe Biden's campaign was almost over for the 2020 election. He was polling low. He was not high. But I forget what primary it was that it was a certain section of the country, and my memory escapes me, but I know what happened, but I can't remember the exact section of the country. But there was a section of the country that had a primary election, and they brought Joe Biden back in that primary. He was done. But people believed that Joe Biden was the only one that really could beat Donald Trump. And so they went with Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden did beat Donald Trump. But Joe Biden was never supposed to be a two-term president. And that's the reality. And you know, I think that when we look at this period in history, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And this whole "it's your turn" kind of sentiment, that shit needs to go out the window. Just because a person has served in government for a long period of time, you know, and it's your turn. No, who's the best for the job? Because guess what? The Republicans ain't talking about whose turn it is. Because really, if we're going based on that, in the 2016 election, it was Jeb Bush's turn. And they did fight it. But eventually they said, you know what, Jeb? Not looking like it's going to happen. You got to remember, Jeb Bush had more campaign money than anybody. It was his turn. One thing I will give Republicans, they know how to fucking pivot. And they have no problem being the bad guy. See, there's a thing about being the hero. When you're the hero and you position yourself as the good guy and the hero, you can't ever play the villain. And you know, villains, it's a funny thing. Villains are sometimes the best characters to play in a movie. Because villains get to pivot. Villains get to deviate. Villains can even have a redemption arc and become the hero. But a hero can never become a villain. Marvel teaches you that. We're at a presidential debate. Let's just think about these rules. let's think about these rules of the debate, right? It's sad that we, the number one country in the world, the city, the shining city on the hill, where the streets are paved of gold, has to have a presidential debate with nobody in attendance, mics muted. Like, is this preschool? These are the people that's leading our country? And I saw a lot of folks talking about the moderators and why the moderators weren't fact checking during the debate. And you know what? To be honest, they couldn't. And you don't like that answer, but it's the truth. You know why they can't? Because if they challenge anything or interrupt anything, because it's CNN, they're going to say it's biased. They skewed it. So they in a rock and a hard place. The only thing they can do is keep time and mute a mic. Because any form of fact checking will be seen as being partial. So they can't do it. But see, here's why that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing because the people who are watching from other outlets or who think that, media, has these views and all of that, can't say that CNN influenced this in any form or fashion because they did not fact check, interrupt, challenge anything. They simply made you answer the question. Although Trump really did not answer questions, he diverted a lot of those questions. He outright just not answered a lot of those questions. But here's the bad thing about that. Here's the bad thing. As a president, as the incumbent, you had a job to dispel those mistruths. This debate, nobody can blame anybody else but themselves for their performance. You can't blame CNN. You can't say the audience was too loud. You can't say you didn't get enough time. You have nobody to blame but you. And also, too, what makes this debate a real knife through the heart is that the American public got to see this debate with no interference, and they got to grade both candidates based solely on how they presented and what they said. So now you have people questioning, and before I went live, I was watching the news programming, and I was watching CNN because, of course, they had the debate on. So they brought on the post-debate with Abby Phillip and John King and David Axelrod and all them. And it was, and Van Jones and, all the people. And it was wild. In my whole time watching CNN, I've never seen that panel not be able to find a silver lining in Joe Biden. When your home team is saying, nah, that ain't it. Like, as soon as just to be clear, for those of you who were watching, as soon as they went to the coverage, John King, as soon as they came on, that was terrible. My phone been going off since the middle of the debate. And this is John King, yo. You can't get no more even than John King. And don't get me wrong, Trump ain't really answering no policy questions. And see, my issue with Donald Trump is this. Aside from moral issues and where we don't align in ways like that, but he can never give you a strategy or an actual outline of his plan to address the issues that he's raising. He can never, he'll say, yeah, it's the best in history, it's the worst in history. We won bigly. But he can never outline the plan. He can never give you policy. But because there's a saying in politics, people vote for their pocketbooks, vote with their pocketbooks. Because everything is so high, because see, I'm going to tell you, some of the stuff that Joe Biden was saying was absolutely correct. Them tax cuts, all that stuff that Donald Trump did impact the economy. It's just that he wasn't in office to see to the effects or really take the blame for the effects of the decisions that he made during the pandemic. But to an American public whose memories are very short and ruled by their bottom line, nobody wants to hear that shit. Okay? Here's the thing, and this is why I think you guys tune into me when you do. It don't get no more liberal than me. I'm a gay black man with a full set, tattoos, earrings. You don't get more liberal than me. But I'm not going to sit and play myself and lie to you like it ain't what it is. Will I be casting my vote for Donald Trump in November? No. That's the reality for me. But I said a year ago, I think Donald Trump is going to win. And I didn't say that just because of Joe Biden. I said that because of what's happening around the world. On this live, on these podcasts, on this YouTube channel, wherever you're viewing, we're broadcasting on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter right now. Shout out to all my cabinet members on all platforms. But if you look at what's going on in the world, I had the privilege of being in Rome, Italy. I spent some time there and in Milan and in Switzerland a month ago. And Italy, surrogacy is illegal in Italy. You cannot be a surrogate. You can't be a surrogate parent. You can't carry a baby for someone. They call it wombs for rent. You can't do it in Italy. In Mexico, their new president, far right. Turkey. This is a global sea change. This is not just Americans. It is a global sea change to a more liberal way of life. There's something in the atmosphere. For those of you who go to church, for those of you, I grew up in Baptist church, Methodist church, black church. There's something in the atmosphere that is saying this is where the world is going. And that something is bigger than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just a benefactor and a herald. Say it with me now. Donald Trump is a herald of this sea change. You feel me? But this is just not America. This is the world. You ever watch Star Wars and they talk about the Force? It can never be too much light. It can never be too much dark. It has to be balanced in the Force. And I am getting ready to ruffle some feathers right now. I really am. And I'm sorry. But I got to speak to what it is. Too much change too quickly incites a backlash. People can't handle it. So when you move quickly, and people like, wait a minute, Holiday. You're going to get a backlash. I know that doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel right, but there has to be balance. If balance wasn't needed, there would not be a need for a right and a left. A red and a green, a right and a wrong. There has to be balance. It can't be too much right, but it can't be too much left. You got to sit right in that center, in that sweet spot. And unfortunately, and I know I'm going to lose people, but you'll look back at this and you say he wasn't lying. We went a little bit too left. And not just in America, in the world. To the point that now you have this surge of ultra-conservative energy. Because we went too left. Too quickly. People have to be escorted into change and progress. The civil rights movement was a escort into progress. Now, I'm not running for office. I'm laughing because some of y'all are saying you should run for office, so I didn't know you was running. I'm not running for office. I would never run for office. I got too many skeletons. Not that that matters these days, but I ain't trying to go through all that. But there has to be an even balance. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing now. Okay? And that backlash is not, once again, it's not just the United States, it's all around the world. Even in Africa, you look at the laws passed in Nigeria, Uganda. It's a backlash. There has to be a balance. So unfortunately, for my nerds out there, we get right into our Sith era. The Republic era is coming to a close. And that's why I say, people on social media, they laughed at me and they're like, oh, you being so dramatic. When I said girls enjoy Pride this year, it'll be probably the last great one that you have for a while. And I'm not joking. And I'm looking in the comments here. Shout out to all of y'all in the comments. They talking about we're gonna let Trump win over one bad night. It's not just one bad night. It's not just one bad night. This was a crucial night. This was a night that I think may have tipped the scales. We still got 18 weeks left until the election, which is about 4.5 months. But this was a night that you needed to do well, and he didn't. Okay. I'm not saying that this is what I want. I want to be clear. But I also, being a black gay man in this world, I know how to survive. And I know how to detect when something's afoot. And right now, especially when we look at what's happening, people saying that they're not going to vote, people saying that they don't want to vote for anyone. You got people saying, I'm going to vote for Trump. And people I never thought I would see say that they're going to vote for Donald Trump. They're saying that this time. Tonight didn't help sway their opinion in the opposite direction. So here we are. Now, Donald Trump he's been convicted on 34 felonies. I'm not saying that I think personally that should disqualify him from running for president. That's my personal opinion. But nobody gives a shit about that. I want to be clear. And especially because the 34 felonies that he was convicted on, it wasn't like, now if he had got convicted on the election shit, which I'm going to be honest, let's talk about that for a minute. The election shit should have been what the first case should have been. Not the shit about him paying off fucking a porn star, yo. You know how many people that fucked porn stars or sex workers and paid that shit off to hide it from their wife? If anything, that elicits sympathy from motherfuckers. Though the case that should have been out was the election interference shit, the January 6th shit. Those are the type of things that you should have been taking him to trial for initially. Now, I know that you can't dictate when different states are going to take a person to trial, but in the grand scheme of things, the first case he got convicted on was fucking paying off a porn star. That does nothing to change the mind of his base. To a swing voter, when they look at that, they're like, that's all you got? It's not about, I want to be clear, it's not about what you think should be, what you think people should think. It's, you got to look at what people are actually thinking. That's how you maneuver. That is why the Democratic Party is suffering now, because they're operating in ideals and what should be and what the blueprint is versus what actually is going on. Sorry, I mean to be yelling and preaching tonight, but I'm going to be honest with you. That fucking debate pissed me the fuck off. And I wanted to get on here. I'm going to be honest with you. I wanted to get on here and crack the fuck up with y'all and make all the jokes. And that was my intention, you know, to give y'all a little kiki. We crack up about, you know, Joe saying you got morals of an alley cat, but that shit ain't even fucking funny for real. It's sad. You had a presidential debate and y'all going back and forth over golf and who gonna carry each other bags and shit. And let's talk about that. Let's break that down. That's that privilege. That show how out of touch both of them are. That on a presidential debate stage, y'all going back and forth over who can play a better game of golf. Most of the American public can't even fucking play golf, never been on a golf course, can't afford to play on a golf course, don't even know what a golf bag feel like or what a caddy costs. Let's talk about that. Out of touch. But when you got people who are in their 80s running the country, what you expect? At this age, they should be in retirement, going on cruises and shit, eating shrimp cocktail on a Lido Day. Not determining how children who can't even reproduce yet or have sex will be able to govern their own bodies. I'm so over it. Am I still voting for the? I'm gonna just say this because I don't know who it's gonna be. Am I still voting for the Democratic um nominee in November? Yes, I am. Okay. You know, that's just the reality. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot of people. And I'm going to tell you something too. This whole Donald Trump talking about black and brown jobs. What the hell is a black and brown job? What is that? That shows you how out of touch he is. Because a lot of black and brown people went to fucking college. A lot of black and brown people are in medical professions, skilled trades, science. You got to get a degree for that, motherfucker. But see, people are so blinded because one thing that Trump is really good at, he is good at using terminology that elicits emotion out of people. He know how to use trigger words. But the reality is, no shade, a lot of those jobs that the migrants would be stealing, I see a lot of white folks working those jobs that didn't go to college. Or they got grandfathered in at the steel factory or that warehouse. So who jobs is the migrant going to be taking? A lot of your surgeons, no shade. When you go to the doctor, let's think about it. When you go to the doctor, I see a lot of Middle Eastern doctors, Asian doctors, African doctors. If we being real. So what job are they taking from you? I challenge everybody watching this. Who wrote your prescription for Ozempic? I bet you he don't look like you. I bet you she don't look like you. Now catch that T. But that's where we at. That's where we at. I ain't gonna lie. Donald Trump is a key. He's fucking hilarious, but he's also scary. Somebody put in the chat comments. Tonight's debate was a bout between Lion Larry and Mumbles McGee, and I couldn't stop laughing because it's the fucking truth. I don't know, man. And here's the thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. Doing these lives, doing Secretary of Shade, a lot of times be depressing, y'all. Like, I like having these conversations and informing people about my take on what's going on, because I'm not law. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a fact checker. Well, I do check the facts though before I come on here. Let me not say that, because I definitely do. That's a lot of homework too, by the way. But I'm not that guy, right? But I hope at the very least that people look within themselves, and that no matter how things go in November, I think what this period will do is reinforce community. We're going to have to look out for each other. We're going to have to really be a neighbor to each other. Because we really going to have the luxury of being able to live in neighborhoods and not know who you living next to is about to be over. Because you're going to need to protect each other. And that's that. But with that being said, if you want to contribute to the channel, you can. Dapper Dan Midas, Cash App, Venmo, the whole spiel. I'm shooting a film this weekend. Woohoo. For 2 days, Sunday and Monday. Um, and I just wish y'all, you know, good vibes and that we can get through this together. And that we are here for each other. And I want to say this. We're not always going to agree with each other. But we should promise each other that we'll at least have a conversation and hear each other out. Because that's the first step. We're not always going to like what we have to say to each other. But we should always be civil. And on that note, y'all have a good night. Good luck. And enjoy your weekend. Peace and love.